Well, here is an interesting piece from Robert Bridge. Millennials are turning to magic and astrology for empowerment because liberal ideology has failed them. And I think this is quite an amazing little article. And of course we're seeing this in an awful lot of movies that are being churned out of Hollywood these days, from the Marvel comic movies, which are filled with superheroes, to the Lord of the Rings, to the Star Wars series, the Compass, drawing on magical powers and deep earth energies and special powers inherited and so on and so forth. So we can see that there really is falling back on this kind of magical thinking. And I don't think there's anything wrong with magical thinking as a form of entertainment, but it must be definitely realized that reality is reality, and whether you like it or not, whether you're a spiritual being, we are on this planet and we're living in a three-dimensional solid reality that has consequences. Increasingly open to astrology, magic and sorcery, while happy to virtue signal on behalf of any PC-saturated issue, the entire millennial generation seems wholly unequipped to face the daunting challenges of adulthood. They may not know how to change a flat tire, cook a simple meal, or stop living in their parents' basement, but millennials, the tech-savvy demographic typically born between the years 1981 and the early 2000s, seem increasingly preoccupied with subjects of a less practical nature ever since graduating from college. Whether it is symptomatic of Trump derangement syndrome, some kind of New Age mysticism, or perhaps spending 4 long years studying impractical liberal arts courses, it's hard to say. But many people are looking to empower themselves with alternative techniques once ridiculed as sheer quackery. This week, for example, NBC published a lengthy essay that celebrated the rise of interest in astrology in an insecure world. In the midst of this physical, political and emotional turmoil, astrology offers us a sense of purpose, wrote Tanya Garamani. It provides reasons why the world is spinning, as well as hope that it will be less nauseating tomorrow. I was always under the impression that the world is spinning due to the so-called cosmic Big Bang theory, mixed up with a generous amount of gravitational pull and so on. But never mind. Gaurami, discussing the feminist roots of astrology, postulates that stargazing pseudoscience empowers women to take more control over their future. It encourages us to learn more about ourselves and go confidently in the direction that makes the most sense for our well-being. Other similar stories of an esoteric, occultist nature have enjoyed a heavy press of late. In October, just in time for Halloween, the media was hyping the revived interest in witchcraft. The technology-oriented website Wired, for example, in a radical departure from its usual computer-oriented wear, reported on a coven of witches who collectively tried to place Donald J. Trump in a magical straitjacket. Amid the prerequisite burning of candles and other voodoo rituals, the members recited an incantation that ended with the collective scream, "You're fired!" Probably not the best material for a Stephen King novel, but it certainly puts a new twist on the term witch hunt. Even the New York Times could not resist hopping on its broomstick for a joyride. "Real witches are roaming among us, and they're seemingly everywhere," gushed the paper of historical record. It went on to quote Helen Berger, a sociologist at Brandeis University. "We're in a period of great transition, and for many of these young people, the spirituality is speaking to them." Publishers Weekly summed up this rekindled interest in spirituality, not to be confused in any way with religion, as the season of the witch. Personally speaking, I understand this interest in the more mystical side of life. There is a great allure to those unseen forces we do not comprehend, yet seem within the realm of plausibility. After all, the Salem witch trials occurred precisely due to this feeling among many people that maybe there really is something behind all of this mystical talk. There is an unsettling underlying theme, however, that weaves itself through the above-mentioned articles, and perhaps the reader has already noticed it. That theme involves the current political battle raging in the United States. For all the breathless talk about witch covens, magical spells and incantations, this purported rise among millennials in mysticism and spiritualism seems to be, partially at least, a cheap political statement against Donald Trump, because the Liberals do not like the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. The millennial mindset. This speaks volumes about the mindset of the millennial generation, which has been raised on an unhealthy diet of liberal radicalism and political correctness gone stark raving mad. Because the president was elected that they didn't like, they now believe that summoning up of mystical forces will change things. This is an act of desperation. No kidding. And attests to the type of education many of these young adults are receiving at some detached, tree-lined college where queer and gender studies, for example, oftentimes substitutes for the time-honoured classics of Western philosophy and history. Meanwhile, the study of science only seems to have merit when it confirms their exceedingly warped worldview. For example, that there are some 13 gender types to choose from, or that the planet and all of its life forms are about to succumb to man-made climate change. None of this bodes well for the future of mankind. How will these coddled individuals who grew up but never quite matured inside a protected bubble of ignorance inherit a world overloaded with problems and topped off with nuclear weapons? I suppose they will just continue to adjust to a world they were not prepared for by reciting magical spells and consulting astrological charts. Well, we saw how well that worked with the so-called Robert Mueller 3 prayer candles, designed to light the way to finding proof of collusion between Trump and the Russians. Then there was a disastrous prediction that Kamala Harris was destined for the White House because she was born on the exact full moon in Aries. Maybe someday Harris will enjoy better political success, but as for now her political star has magnificently crashed. Perhaps the best takeaway for the more liberal-minded millennials is to remember that what you learn in the classroom and what you experience in the real world are two completely different things. The higher institutes of learning would do well to remind their students of that difference, while allowing for a climate of frank and open discussion on all subjects, even if the subjects bring discomfort, which is the way the real world works. No amount of magical spells or charms will change that.